The Last of Us Season 2 has just drawn to a close, and after a spell of 7 episodes that well and truly divided us fans, which is something that I didn't think would happen due to the first season being so strong, the ending to Season 2 set up the third installment in the perfect way possible. There had been an announcement recently about Season 3 looking like it was going to focus entirely on Abby with her story, and with the way that the final 30 seconds of the Season 2 finale went, it looks like that could well be the case. So with that, I wanted to take a look at all that was out there along with giving my theories and predictions on what I think could happen next. So let's get into it. Here is The Last of Us Season 3 Everything We Know. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The release date. In terms of a release date being on the cards right now, that's something that I'd say is just too early to confirm. However, one way to predict it is to look at not only the gap between Season 1 and Season 2, but also the trend in the gaps of time that tend to be present amongst most HBO shows. However, before we get to that, the most important piece of information is to find out if the show is even returning for a third installment and receiving the green light. Well, thankfully, before Season 2 had even concluded, HBO announced that The Last of Us had been greenlit for one more season, which is good because the story did leave us on a cliffhanger with the gunshot going off and also the teasing of Abby's ventures throughout her time in Seattle. So when looking at when Season 1 was first released, that aired in the early part of the year of January 2023, and then it took almost 2 whole years once it finished for Season 2 to then be aired. That seems to be the trend with most of the shows on TV these days, to be honest, and it's something that adds to them being worth the wait if they're incredible, but on the other side, it contributes to them feeling worse because it can often feel like such a long wait. So I would assume that based on the trend that seems to be present nowadays, it's most likely going to be about 2 years until it hits the screen again. So I'm going for a 2027 January release, tying back into when Season 1 first aired. In terms of how many episodes this new season's going to have, this is also a difficult one to predict. This season had a measly 7, something that I was so disappointed about. I'd like to predict that it's going to go back to its more traditional approach and be closer to 10, but my thinking is that if it's going to be showcasing to us the exact time period that Ellie had, but from Abby's perspective, then it would obviously make sense to have the exact same amount of episodes. I actually think it might have one more, and we'll have 8 episodes. This season felt so short, and like not much actually happened, so I'm hoping the showrunners will take that on board and learn from it. So I'm saying a January 2027 release date with 8 episodes for Season 3. The story. Okay, so this is where the next season could get interesting. For those that haven't played the game, it's essentially split in 2, where you play Ellie's 3 days in Seattle and you also play Abby's 3 days in Seattle as well, allowing you to take control of Abby as a playable character. And whilst in control of her, it aims to provide a somewhat sympathetic and empathetic approach in making us see The Last of Us's world that's filled with suffering, fear, death, and chaos from a perspective other than Joel and Ellie's. So that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing taking place in the show. With the closing moments in the finale popping up with the text, Seattle Day 1, as Abby woke up from sleeping, it seems like the next season is going to go down that pathway too. Abby seems like such a troubled character, obviously because her father was murdered, but it seems like there's a deep-rooted dark backstory there that I'm hoping we're going to see getting explored on screen. With the way that she looked in her final confrontation with Ellie, it seems like she could have been involved in maybe battling with the Seraphites due to the bruising that was around her neck. As we know, that seems to be their preferred way to sacrifice. Or she might have even tried to end things for herself. We saw how much the death of her father hurt her, and maybe she couldn't see beyond the pain. So being able to see inside of her mind in Season 3 is going to make a massive difference to the understanding of the character. My fear is that Ellie was so dislikable in this season that if we end up sympathizing with Abby, then it really will flip the show on its head with who we end up rooting for. That does also make me question what Ellie's involvement in the next season is actually going to be. I wonder if she'll even be in it, and if the showrunners are going to entirely focus on Abby, which would be a brave move, or if partway through the season we're going to see where the confrontation was left off at, and then it'll go back to the present day. With the gunshot going off, I don't actually think that was Abby firing the weapon. The one person that we didn't see in that scene was Dina, as she was sleeping in a different room, so I reckon it was Dina having heard the commotion. Most likely ended up firing at Abby, and from there, Ellie, Tommy and Dina will try and make an escape. This is where I feel the season could conclude, and it could then set up season 4, which I imagine would be the final season. The showrunners confirmed themselves that the story won't be able to get wrapped up in the 3 seasons, so they're hoping that a 4th season does get commissioned. This would likely see the 3rd avenue of the game, The Last of Us 2, being explored. It's where Ellie and Dina live together on a farm, so if Abby gets the main focus in this season and they manage to escape, I reckon that leaves the farm element for the final installment. Something that I'd love to see in the next season, if it's going to be Abby focused, is a flashback of seeing Abby's life when she was with her father and what she went through. We got to see what Ellie went through when she was younger and we heard all about it too, so seeing a time where Abby was happy, it would provide a good contrast to the type of character that we've seen on screen and the rage-fueled mindset that she has now. Alongside Abby's story, I think we'll also see Isaac Dixon and the Wolf members facing off against the Seraphites, and we'll see the Seraphites' perspective on things too. There's a historical war that's been going on between both of these sides, and whilst it was teased in this season, I think it'll get fleshed out a lot more when the show does eventually return. And let's not also forget, Cordyceps is now airborne, so I reckon that'll tie into the story as well. The cast. In terms of the characters that'll feature in Season 3, this is an interesting one, because you'd think that if the story is going to be heavily focused on Abby, will Bella Ramsey be in it at all? To be honest, she's the face of the show, so I feel like she most probably will, but it could be more so towards the end of the season, or maybe even halfway through when we pick back up on that cliffhanger when the gunshot was fired. With us also going back in time slightly, I think that means we'll most likely see all of Abby's crew still alive as well. So I'm predicting we'll see Abby, Owen, Nora, Mel, Manny, Ellie, Dina, Tommy, Isaac Dixon, Hanrahan, Burton, Park, as well as many of the other Seraphites too, as I imagine that war is going to ensue and we'll see the invasion that took place during the finale. I would like to think that we'd see Pedro Pascal as Joel, but unless there's any type of flashback that occurs with him and Ellie that we haven't seen yet, then I think his time has most probably come to an end in the show. As well as that, I imagine we'll most likely be introduced to a wide array of new characters that are a part of Wolf that'll contribute to Abby's story, and it'll allow us to understand more about her and her motives, so I'm excited to see who's going to join the cast. In terms of who won't return, I can't see us going to Jackson in the next season, just due to the way that it could be split, so the likes of Seth, Maria and Gail might not return until season 4. And with Jesse being killed in the final moments, his time has most definitely come to an end too. Unfortunately for now, that's all that's known about Season 3 of The Last of Us. I'm sure we'll get more information as we draw ever closer to that release date, which will most likely be in 2 years' time. But until then, to live the story that could well be on the horizon, the game is always there to be played. So, there you have it, The Last of Us Season 3, Everything We Know. If you want to see every episode of The Last of Us Season 2 being broken down, then check the playlist below. Do you think Season 3 will be stronger than what we just got? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.